Hey everyone, how you doing? Now, when I was thinking about starting this channel up, I put the call out on Twitter asking for people who are passionate about visual novels and wanted to write about them. I wanted to create like a sort of a writing team or kind of a community where people could just write about their visual novel experiences and I could make it into a video and we could just have a nice little community talking about VNs. You guys already know Miguel from his work on Switch Watch. We had Lilia who wrote the upcoming Otome's on Switch video. It's fantastic. And today we've got Katie Pajamas. Love that name. And she was really wanting to get into writing reviews, and so I told her, well, just write about anything you want, let's see how it goes. And well, this video is how it goes. This is her review of Love Spell, Written in the Stars. Sorry, I forgot this name for a second there. Please follow her on Twitter with the links in the description, and also please tell her to write more because it's pretty good. While most of the time for visual novels, I go for the handheld experience on the Switch due to convenience and the feeling of holding the system just like an actual book. But after a friend's recommendation, I took a chance on Love Spell, Written in the Stars over on Steam. At the recommended price of $18.99 in the US, I was expecting some quality here, and honestly I was impressed with the result. The game was originally released in the summer of 2020 on PC and is both developed and published by Great Gratuski Studios as their first release title. The plot follows a young female, 22 years old, with the default name of Luna. She's a girl from a small town who is currently surviving college life on her own and struggling to decide which major to choose, which is both incredibly relatable and familiar to many out there. Throughout the prologue of the story, you get to meet your 4 potential love interests in various situations, from pouring coffee all over one to awkwardly running into another with their current girlfriend. This all changes though, after rescuing an older lady from certain death and receiving a reward in the form of a mysterious love spell journal. This changes Luna's life. Whoever's name is written in its pages will fall madly in love with our main character, with a few caveats. What follows is 4 different romance routes, each featuring various locations, new side characters and vastly different endings. Unlike most visual novels, there isn't a common route that through choices define which character's route you'll end up in. Instead, when the prologue is completed, you don't have to run through it again unless you choose to. Instead, you are directed to a navigation screen from the main menu, which allows you to select which character's route you'd like to tackle next. This makes each route feel separate and specific to each character. It gives everyone their own space for you to enjoy the route with them and them alone. While during these routes there are occasionally dialogue choices to choose from, they don't seem to affect the story that much, aside from just changing the conversation that follows slightly. There is always one choice near the end of each route that will determine if you get the good or bad ending, and it is very obvious which that choice is while playing. There are currently 4 main romance choices for our MC to choose from. The 4 choices are Enix Grey, the childhood best friend, Florian Atlas, the university professor, Jamie Nero, the mysterious new coffee barista, and Marcello DiNucci, a slightly scary entrepreneur. Each route plays out completely with the same formula, but ultimately differently, with the most common underlying theme in them all being Luna falling in love and discovering what she wants to do for her college major, although the latter is focused on differently between routes. They are all equally strong and weak in some areas, with the weakest in my opinion being Enix's due to a looser storytelling, and the strongest being Florian due to the variation of location and the strength of his story. But each has its own take on Luna's personality and adds a lot of growth for her as a character from both her and her love interest themselves. Each route also contains at least 1 or 2 spicy scenes. Nothing explicit is shown or described in a large amount of detail, but it is something to keep in mind while playing. Each route has 2 endings, good and bad, as is typical for most visual novels. The bad endings aren't overly bad, but it's obvious when you've unlocked that as opposed to a good one. After completing the routes, receiving the best ending, and rolling credits, each route also features a short epilogue which explores the characters' future together. Overall, I was fairly pleased with each route and would rank them from strongest to weakest: Florian Atlas, Jamie Nero, Marcel DiNucci, and Enix Grey. There is also one small sneak preview route that unlocks after all the others that lasts about 5 to 10 minutes that gives some insight into the future DLC. In addition to the main love cast, there is also many great additional side characters in each route, my favourite being one of the few that is featured in all of them, Philia. Philia is your love spell penguin companion. Penguin because, you know, pen, use a pen in a journal. Okay, yeah. See, she is there to guide you through all your love spell needs, and is probably one of the funniest side characters in an Otome visual novel that I've seen. This is a true credit to how well done the writing is in this game, and relieves the pressure and tension during the heavier moments. Outside of Philia and the old lady who you save at the beginning, each route features a new set of characters, each written differently, which makes the routes feel that much more alive and different. While overall this Otome does have a lot of high points, there are quite a few things that I think could be a little bit better. The routes are split up into small chapter segments, which while this does make it easy to pick up where you last left off, it also makes each route seem a little choppy and overly segmented. There is no save option as a result, so if you pick a choice and want to change your answer, you have to start the route over. Also, as every good visual novel fan knows, one of the best parts of the game are CGs that you unlock while playing. Sadly, Love Spell only lets you unlock 4 per route, which made me a little bit disappointed. Lastly, while I do love each individual story, I do feel like the game itself is a tad predictable. Every route follows a similar formula. Girl meets boy, they kinda get along, they really get along, they fall in love, problems arise, problems resolve, happy ending. It's very easy to see the crescendos and falls during each of the story that follows this formula, and while being predictable isn't bad, it would be nice to mix things up just a little bit. That being said, each route does find a way to make these rise and falls interesting and give you more in certain areas depending on whose route you're on. Florian Atlas seems to do the best at this while giving the best story out of all of them. Another thing to keep in mind is that it seems a lot of visual novels with a route format tend to do something similar. Outside of these small complaints, however, the game does wonderful at what it's trying to do, which is provide a lovely little love story with 4 adorable guys. One of the best parts of any visual novel is the art and music that goes along with the story, and for Love Spell, that was no exception. The art is well done for both characters and backgrounds in the game. Luna and all the romantic interests are all adorably designed in the outfits they're featured in throughout the story. There were a couple of CGs and characters that didn't look quite as well drawn or designed as the rest of the game, but they were few and far between. The backgrounds were rarely reused from route to route and seemed very fitting, although some seem slightly generic and similar to other games. Finally, regarding the music, I would have liked there to be music made specifically for the game, since that always shows how much time and care went into designing each part of the game. Love Spell, however, uses royalty-free music, at least based on the credits, leaving this part a little lacking for me. Overall, would I recommend this game? I would. The game itself obviously had a lot of love put into it despite a few small drawbacks. The dialogue is hilarious, well written and relatable. The characters well designed and creative, and each are given a distinct personality. And while it might be slightly generic in some areas, I found it a really fun and memorable experience. Not to mention that the developers are currently working on new DLC for a 5th additional route and even a 6th one if enough patrons are reached on their Patreon page. Additionally, the studio is also hard at work on their next game called Peach Leaf Valley Seeds of Love, which I'm looking forward to after this one. There is currently a demo available for it on Steam. Ultimately, Love Spell, written in the stars, shows the studio started off on the right track and is heading in the right direction in the Otome world with memorable characters and a darn good game. A 7 out of 10. Alright, thanks to Katie Pajamas for writing this review of this overlooked Otome. Please follow her on Twitter with the links below, and also please check out some of our other stuff. If you're Otome focused, we've got you covered. If you're into any kind of VN, we've got you covered. Please subscribe and let us grow. You might even win a couple of Switch games.